Hello and welcome to the Alpha Demo and Q&A webcast. I'm Dave McCormick, VP of Product Management here at Alpha Software, and I'm pleased to be joined today by Sarah Mitchell, our Director of Customer Success, as well as an Alpha expert, although he claims only an advanced user, Lee Vasic. Lee has presented for us before, and he's going to be continuing showing you some stuff that maybe he showed you a little bit last time, but has since progressed, and that has to do with working with data and pictures in a visualization, sort of a two-way way of interacting with data using pictures. I explained that really badly, but don't worry, when we jump in, you'll see what I'm talking about. Lee, I also think, has a few other things he will demo as well, and we're also here to take your questions. We can type those into the questions box of the GoToWebinar control panel. All right, let's begin. First, let me take you off mute here, Lee. Hello, Lee, are you there?
Hello, I am.
Excellent. Let me go ahead and make you the presenter. And so you should see a dialog box on your screen. And I am looking at Alpha Anywhere.
Okay. So far, so good.
Yep, take it away.
So part of this, it's kind of a two-part demonstration that I wanted to talk about today, and I wanted to show you, as you know, I'm kind of evangelist for promoting multi-tenant apps. And so I wanted to show you a little bit about what some work I've done now in that multi-tenant app range. And able to do that, I need to show you the security. And so security can be tested in live preview. So if we go here and we go to our login, and you'll see how that works. So I have my login screen here. Now my convention here is, depending on the tenant ID, I have Lee1 at vasic.com, Lee2, Lee3, like that. So I can bifurcate the data. So we'll log in. One of the reasons I did this originally was to take all the latest and greatest components and not use any old components or any old methods or properties. And so here's my convention. And if you're just starting out in Alpha, this is a great way to learn about Alpha. And it's also a great way to showcase your product for potential clients. So if you don't have any clients right now, but you're just starting in Alpha, I would suggest building something like this, and then you can show it to them. And also, if you have, you're using Alpha Cloud, there's some really great benefits to Alpha Cloud. Number one, you don't have to worry about a URL, so you don't have to buy one of those when you're in developer mode. You don't have to buy an SSL certificate in developer mode. And now there's a little database even in Alpha Cloud that you can use. So you can go in and build something like this, and then you can have potential clients look at it, and they can see the kind of work that's possible. But what I wanted to do here was, so for example, this is a multi-tenant app, but it doesn't use session variables. All it uses is args. And the database actually sits out on Amazon. And so as you can see, what I wanted to do is get kind of a full stack implementation. So you can see, like, down on the bottom left is the copyright, and then down here on the bottom right, I have elapsed time and expires. Up here, I have this where I can see the profile if I wanted. When I log in case I wanted to change something, I can change something. Over here, you can see I have the typical badges, and so here's a badge. This is showing how many people are out today. So this guy's on PTO, this person's at a conference. So you could do that kind of stuff. And if you add somebody in here, then you can see what would happen. I can come over here and say, let me see, I forgot who that was. But anyway, say at a meeting that was scheduled. And now you can see that they're at a meeting, and you can see now the badge incremented to 3. So now there's 3 badges that are being affected, or employees that are out and about today. And then this is just a little reminder. So you can see it looks and has all the functionality of what you'd expect. And so you have, basically right here, you have what the tenant is, and then you have who logged in. And then when you first log in, now I did this thing now where you get the newsletter for the company. And so this will depend, of course, on who the user is, but if it was a different company, it would be a different logo and, you know, different information here. And so it's all designed to kind of showcase alpha in a way. And I'll show you some of the things that people seem to really like. I mean, the first thing I always show them is the work docs. I'm talking about how to download off an S3 bucket. And so you can do different things here, but like, for example, this guy here, employee insurance plan. So these are documents that all companies should have. And this is just now available at your fingertips. And so look at this. This is 320 pages, and it just downloads instantly. So it's fantastic. And of course, now I could download it too if I wanted to print it out for some reason or email it to somebody. So there's just so many documents like this, and especially on the company level, you could have all your contracts in here because it is encrypted and secure in an S3 bucket. And then, of course, you'd expect help screens, and so you have different help screens here that will, you know, you could use. So I use the alpha help method, and so again, one of the conventions I use is to say, I'll always use a builder if a builder is available, and I'll look to see if a builder is available first before I try to do anything custom. And so you could literally prototype something with no code whatsoever, right, and put it up there and publish it on Alpha Cloud and start showing people just the power of Alpha. And then you could do things like this, video training, for example, and I could click on this and play a video. And so this was actually a technique I learned from Selwyn and Alpha. And to tell you the truth, I didn't like it at first because I was from the old school and liked big giant manuals that showed stuff. And then now I love the videos that Selwyn does, and I can learn and I can rewatch them and rewatch them. So it's a great management technique. You know, if you have a program and you have your program documented in videos, there's really no onboarding so much as just to say, go to the videos and watch the 1 through 10, and then they know how to use your program. So it really saves a lot of time and stuff in training. But anyway, so this was a little video I made in Camtasia, and it just shows a real good example of the software and where it can be used and how it can be used and that kind of thing.
What are you using for the video player here? Using something that's built into Alpha?
Yep, I'm using the Alpha piece that goes to Vimeo.
Right.
Right, and so
Excellent.
that one I hid the Vimeo logo, which I like, which you can do. I think this one might show the Vimeo logo. Yeah, see, this one shows the logo.
Oh, I see. Yep.
But like in Camtasia, you get these little video bits, and then you can use them like this, and so you can make your, you know, videos look pretty professional. And so this is like a video I used as a promotional video in a booth at a software convention for this certain software, which was agency data software. And so just different things that you can do here. But what's really nice too is, you know, if you're going to train somebody, and let's say if you wanted to say, like, let's say, what's the one that says scheduling here? Well, maybe it's this one. But if it's, well, no, I was looking for the mobile one. But you know, this is a great way to train people on mobile because they could just watch the video, where it's kind of hard if they're trying to look over your shoulder and you're using your phone, you know. So anyway, there's a lot of different things like that. Oh, here it is right here. Mobile, right? But so, yeah, so in Vimeo, you can set it so these are private, and you can also set it so you don't even see the title of the Vimeo title like I did on this one here. And so here I'm teaching the nurses how to schedule on a smartphone, and you can just, so easy. And then basically, you know, where it used to be like a 2-week training course and you train the trainer and people have to train, it got to the point where people would just watch the videos, and within a day they understood the software, they stood how it worked, and they were trained. And so it's a fantastic thing, but it's part of the whole application, right? And so The other thing that is interesting now is, so I talk about multi-tenant apps, and even if you don't think it's going to be a multi-tenant app, I like having a test company in the multi-tenant app just so I can go out there if there's an issue and look at test data.
So
And
Lee,
so,
for the for newbies here today, could you talk a little bit about multi-tenancy and what that means and how that's different, say, from just a regular app that you would build maybe for a single purpose?
yep, I am glad you asked that question. So I came over here and I have this model, and here's the model of multi-tenancy. So here, the first model is shared applications, shared databases. Second model, one shared application and separate databases. And the model I'm using here is one shared application and one shared database. And within that, you can have multiple tenants. And so this is how I really like to build my databases, like that. And I'll show you, for example, so here's my application dashboard. So when you have a multi-tenant app, you need to have visibility of everybody in the application. And you also need to be able to control, when somebody comes on board, a new tenant, for example, and they sign a document that they're going to pay X amount a month and they're going to use your application, then you want to be able to get them in pretty fast and get it all set up. And it really should be at this level, that you can go out here and do this. So for example, you'll see in this application console, I have the application dashboard, and it just shows me all the tables, and then it just shows me how many rows are in each table. So this just helps me at the application level to see this. And then it shows my tenants. So right now I have 4 tenants in the database. And then it shows my SQL assets. I have 33 tables and 18 views, a stored procedure and a function. It shows me my application assets, 259 components, 6 functions, 111 images, that kind of thing. And then it shows security members, and it shows security groups. So it gives me kind of an overview of the tenants. And so if I were to go here now to this schema here, so I started using the AdventureWorks database. And so this is the AdventureWorks database. And this was Microsoft's attempt to create as many tables as possible. So what I've done is kind of flatten some of these tables out, but this is where I started. I started using this. And I wouldn't suggest using this. The reason I use this is because it has a lot of records, and I wanted to kind of test the system a little bit and see the volume I could use. But Northwind is a good database to use as you model stuff. So now let's say someone comes into the application, they've said, I want to be a tenant in your application. So if I come out here now okay, let's add a new tenant. We have the new tenant wizard. And so what's going to happen now, it's going to add a new tenant row. So basically a new company. It's going to add a new extended user, and then it's going to add a security user, and then it's going to add the user to the administrator group. And so if I click on this now, and I just kind of did this so I don't have to type it all in, but you've set it up now, and then when you say create it, now it's creating the tenant. And this isn't a no-code thing, but it's really not any custom code, and I'll show you behind the scenes on how I did that. So now if we come back out to our application dashboard and we hit the refresh button, we should see there's now number 5. Company number 5 is now in there. So now we've added a tenant. And now if I go to the members and groups, you can see now there's a number 5, Lee5 at Vasic.com, and he has admin tenant rights. And so now if I click on this, what you're seeing here is the extended user info table. And from this position, if I wanted to, I could change the user and put them in a different company if I wanted to. I could hook them up. This is like the old U-Link one. I could hook them up with a different, to a staff member as an employee, but you don't have to because it's really run separately. And you can see from here, I can set all the things up. So if I want 2-factor authentication, I could set it here. If I want to disable the user, I can set it here. If I want to change the password the first time, I can set it here. And then if I want to change security groups, I can do that. So let's go and look real quick and see on the back end where that is. So if I come over here and let's see if I have that up still. Somewhere. Let me get rid of this guy and this guy. And you'll notice I'm on Amazon with this. And within Amazon, I have a view that we'll look at real quick here. Let me do a new query. I say select from vcheck groups. And I'll put this guy out here. Oh. And so you can see I'm in one group right now. And so we'll go back to this. And I'm going to update the groups, and I'm going to put myself in a couple of different groups, and I'll save it. So now what I've done on the back end here is I'm not even calling up any security tables or anything. This is just the extended user table. But what I'm doing is using the alpha functions to say update the security user group, update user web security user, update web security groups. And now if we go look at it and I run it, now you'll see the groups are there. So what I've done is I've put this as the driver. So this is the driver here. And I got this idea because when I created an extended user table using the alpha default settings, all of this was in the default setting. So I thought to myself, well, if this is all in the default setting, then I can just use this to, maintain the security. And now if you're in a company, like right now I'm signed on as company 1, and I come here and I say, go to the company console. And then if I were to look at the security here, I would only see for user ID 1 or tenant ID 1. Now, if I go to edit, for example, I can't change the tenant ID now. So this is what the tenant would see. They would only see the groups for them, or the security or logins for them, but they wouldn't see. And of course, they don't get the ability to change or to insert a new tenant. And so then you notice I showed you that newsletter earlier. And so this is where that is they can come here and now they can put the newsletter here. And so they can maintain their newsletter here. And then that's what shows up, when you first log in. So each tenant can now maintain their own newsletter. And then of course, just like in any program, almost all the programs have some same common components. And so I thought, let's just build all those components. So there's a fixed assets component, a policy manager component, a compliance component. So all these kind of things. And so when I showcase what I can accomplish in alpha, then people instantly go, oh yeah, we see what this can do, And then there's other things that people really like too, like this org chart. It's a huge thing. Anytime anybody comes into a company, they always want to see your org chart, especially if it's a federal or state agency. So you can have an org chart here. It's easily printed out. So let's go and look in alpha now for just a second, and we'll go to the tenant, create tenant module. And I just kind of want to show you behind the scenes here. And you'll see what I'm doing here is I'm using the alpha functions, right? So here I'm saying to create the user, right here, and right here I've already put in the password. So the default password is welcome1. So when I do that, and then it creates things. Now I'm adding the user role when I first build it. So everything basically is just coming from the extended user table. Let's see if I have it here. I guess I just do it behind the scenes, but so this pops up, and then it creates all the records that security needs, the security framework, and it also maintains your tenant right there. So it creates a company. So when you have a tenant, right, you have a company with multiple rows in it for your companies or your tenant IDs, and then of course you have your extended user tables. And if we go and look at those tables, and now there's also a bit of a caveat here, because now if you're on the Alpha Cloud, you can't get to your user tables like you used to. So this handles all that as well. But if we were to look at this guy, which is my extended user table, you can see I have all the information in the extended user table. So I have the tenant ID, and then I have some other information, the security groups, and here, this other options, JSON, that's a lot of that two-factor authentication stuff is here. And then I also have a thing called last logged in, so you can see that there. So it's a real nice way to handle the multi-tenant information. And then if you use, let me do that again. If you don't use session variables and you use args, then you never have to worry about it crossing over. It really stays separated. And you could open up two versions of the browser and it still the info still stays separated. So here on users, I'm doing the same thing, right? All I'm doing here is, well, we should look at this, I guess. I'm just calling my extended user table. And then depending on how you open it, if you open it through the web app, the application level, then it's going to show you everybody basically. But if you open it up through a tenant ID, then it will only show you that tenant ID, which you just saw, you demonstrated that. But then if we come down here, you can see how this is all done. Again, very simple stuff. I'm getting the information off the form. I'm setting all the arguments here. And then I'm building that JSON for the other information. So you can see how I'm doing that if the two-factor authentication and then, that kind of thing there. And then I'm updating the extended user table. And before that, again, I'm just calling the alpha functions. So I'm going to create a security user here, and then I'm going to add the user to the roles. And when I first start, all I'm adding is the admin role for the tenant, because usually the first guy in is going to be the guy that's going to set up the database for everybody, right? So a new tenant comes in, you create this, you send it to him, and then you say, welcome one's the password, and then of course he's going to change that when he first comes into the system. And then he's going to go to his company table and he's going to add the name and the address of the company, the logo of the company, those kind of things. And then, he sets it up. And then from that, he can actually start adding users in if he wants to. So it's a real nice way to handle it. And so if I were now to come here and go to my company console again, and if I were to look at my company data, you can see I have this here, and right, and I have program options. So I could come here and I could say what the theme is. I could say, different policy things that they can see, depending, I guess, if they paid for it or not. I can update the logo. So I very rarely put images in the database, but the one thing I like to put in the database is the logo of the company. And doesn't really affect your database. You're going to keep the image somewhat small, and it's going to be for multiple companies, of course, but it really works well to put it there. And then now I can't remember if I updated this yet. If I go here, oh, I don't have this set yet. But here, if I came here and clicked on company, then I should see a list of all companies like this. And then I should be able to go into each company and change it. So the one I've already kind of set it up to do that. So what I'm doing here behind the scenes is this is a list box, but what I do is I hide the list box. And so then you only get the form. But if I came through the app console, then it wouldn't hide the list box and I'd be able to see all of the companies. So just some little techniques you could use. And again, there's no coding involved in it, right? It's all no code, low code kind of stuff. So anyway, and then for example, some of the things that you can do too, and this is great as a teaching or learning thing, is you come here and now on my staff dashboard, for example, right, it shows all the statistics from the staff database. So it's showing you the gender counts and the salary versus non-salary and your vacation sick liabilities. And most people have worked in this company for 13 years, interestingly enough. And then it shows you your age. We have a lot of people that are in their 20s. There's a few people in their 60s, and then staff counts. And so you can see, for example, you have a lot more in production, which is good. But if you looked at this, I guess if you're an HR person and looked at this and suddenly you had more executives than you did production people, you probably are top heavy in your company. But some of the things you can do here is, and you'll notice what I'm doing here is these are dynamic panels. And so when I click on a panel, you'll see how it loads. And then almost every grid I have checkboxes on. And so if I were to click preview here, it shows me 6 pages, you'll notice. But if I were to come here and just check a couple and then preview it, you would see you only get what you checkboxed. So these are the kind of things that you can play with and work when you're building this kind of a prototype system, and then understand, how easy it is in alpha to do this kind of stuff. And even within this report, this image will change depending on what company it is. So for this company, that's the logo you get. And this is kind of why I like to keep the logo in the database, because it's just real easy and you use it a lot, within these systems. And then of course, I wanted to build a report that had images too. So here's a quick staff directory with images. And so it just kind of shows you all the possibilities. And, there's no reason to think that alpha can't do just about anything you want. Like they say, if you can conceive it and believe it, you can pretty well accomplish it in alpha. And I'm going to show you some of that fancy stuff here in a minute. One of the things I wanted to show you, something that I've just started doing, which I really like, is, for example, we have a map tied to the customers. And again, the potential clients really like this stuff. They like to see the documents. They like to see the videos. They like to see the maps. They can really see this, what can be done here. But what I wanted to do in this case was tie a marker to each customer, like you can see here. And so if I open up this guy, and in fact, if I click on the markers over here, you'll see it will highlight on the left who they are. So if you were looking at something and you were to say, who's that guy over there, right? And now, so if I click on this guy and I want to open this guy, you can see here's the marker. So if I click on here and want to choose a different marker, I get this list. Now, what's really cool about this is coming from an S3 bucket. So I'm not storing anything in a file, in a SQL database, right? This is all coming from an S3 bucket. And I've even gone out there and put some of Alpha's internal logos out there to use. And so you can grab anything here, like let's make this guy water and save it. And now you can see there he is, water. You can see it's changed over here. So Alpha makes this so simple and easy to use and to do it that way. So all your images can be stored in S3 buckets, these kind of images especially, and you can use them all over the place, really. So Dave, is there any questions on this part before I switch to the next part?
Yeah, just a couple of things to read that you could review just a little bit would be great. The first thing is when you were talking about multi-tenancy, it seemed that even if you're not building an app that you're going to use for SaaS purposes, or it's only going to be for one client, that you might almost suggest still going down the multi-tenancy route because of testing. Does that seem to make sense? That you have one
Absolutely.
which, yeah,
Absolutely.
I think that's brilliant actually, and I hadn't really never thought about going about it that way. But of course, you'll have sample data in one, and then when it's time to use the other one, you can start with a fresh instance.
Exactly. And when you're building these things, it's not that much work, if hardly anything at all, just to pass those arguments, because you're just
And
going to set it up by arguments.
are you taking advantage of the multi-tenant driver in Alpha? In other words, the one that requires you to put in a tenant ID when you access the database?
I'm not using that. And
Okay.
one of the reasons I'm not using is because I wanted to stay away from session variables. And
I
so,
understand. And I noticed that you used args exclusively, it seems, over session variables. And you said something about being able to keep sessions separate from each other. Can you talk just a little bit about that?
Yep. So, the problem in the beginning, and you still kind of have now in some apps, is if someone opens it up in multiple sessions in the same browser, you'll have a problem with the data being cross-contaminated.
Right.
With a session variable. But if you're using args, that will never happen.
Excellent.
And I actually have a test. I don't have it available right now, but I actually tested it where I could do that and check it out, and and it worked out really well.
Excellent.
And so one of the things I do too is I have a little XBasic function here. And what I'm doing again is very simple. So first off, the first thing I do is I'm asking myself, am I in the IDE? And if I'm in the IDE, and this is how you can tell, then it's going to say yes. And so when I come up here and I say, if I'm in the IDE, if that's yes, then let's just use this as my user login.
Sure.
But if I'm not in the IDE, go ahead and let's use the context security current user. So this is how I simulate the security when I'm in the developer. And there's, and it works just perfect. And then of course, look what I'm doing here is I'm getting the user info function, and all I'm doing here is saying, well, grab this information from the extended user table. And this is an alpha function here. And then I'm saying, and yeah, let's put that in a JSON parse, and then I'll show you how that works. And so it's very easy then when you have like the mainframe, and on any component really, when you first come into the component, look, all I'm doing here is saying, well, get me the tenant user information, right? And then that's how I load it. And so you don't even have to worry about, and in this case, I'm actually doing that a little bit more for the tenant information. So if we come down here and look at that one, tenant user information, you'll see what I'm doing here, right? So I'm actually calling the database and I'm getting that information. And then when I bring it back, I don't have to worry about the data I bring back as long as I'm putting it, receiving it as a JSON text.
Sure.
And then all I'm doing is sending it back. And then because of that, everything's available to you that's in that. So if we were to put a debug here, for example, and run it, and I just think this is brilliant to be able to do it this way. because you'll use that a lot more than you realize, and you could use it in the IDE as well. So it's not like you have to keep setting up session variables and then commenting them out when you go to production, you know, that kind of thing. And so now if I double click on that U, well, let's step first. Now if I double click on it, I get everything that's coming back there, right?
Yeah.
But I don't have to use it. I just use what I want. And so let me step through it again. So I'm just using what I want here. That's all I'm doing. And then I'm loading the controls this way. You can load the controls or you can load arguments here. Like for here, I'm loading an argument right here.
Yep.
And anyway, and then like you could see what I'm doing here. Now I'm saying get the last login, and if the last login is less than today, then let's show the company news panel, or if not, let's just show the home panel. And then I pass that JavaScript back through this eJavaScript piece here. And then there's a little function called put last login time. And so if I go back to that and look at that login, put last login time, you can see this is where I do it here, just a little function that updates my extended user table. So it shows when I was last logged in.
That is cool. All right,
And then,
one last quick. Oh yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was about to say that I do have one more question about something you just showed a moment ago, and that was when you were detecting whether or not you were in the IDE. Someone was curious how you did that.
So
like what?
This is documented out there too. So I didn't invent anything. I just saw, oh, you can tell when you're in the IDE. That's pretty cool. So it's basically Alpha's code that I took and looked at. Let's see where it
But it's a function that you wrote. It's not included in the
right now. So this is my function, but this is Alpha's piece here. So if it says live preview, or if it says this, that means working preview.
Yep.
And then so that's what it is. So if it's one of these, then it's going to be yes, we are in IDE. Else it's going to be no.
Terrific. Thank you for clarifying that.
Yep, and that's a nice little function. Okay, so let me switch now to this other one. And this one's called Image Mapper. And this one's kind of interesting. And so the view box control just came out with the ability to drag and drop. So I had this with a lot of code before, so I updated it, got rid of all my custom code, and just really used alpha code for this for the most part. I mean, there are some custom code, and I'll show it to you, but it's pretty straightforward what's happening here. So the idea here, let's see if this guy's still on. Yep, that guy's still on. The idea here is I have a floor plan. So this first started out, I said, how do I make fixed assets exciting? Like, you know, because everybody has to do their fixed assets for their business. It's part of your taxes. It's part of your business valuation, all that. So if you come here and click on these things, look, you get what's in each room. If I click on the copier room, it shows me all the different things. If I click on conference room 1, it shows me all the different things, conference room 2. And then I thought, wouldn't it be nice, rather than the only thing that's sitting here that's fixed is the image. So I drew this little image. This was my office, and I drew this little image in a different program. And so there's 3 databases that make this run. You have the image database, and then you have where the markers are, and then you have the detail of each marker. And so, for example, if I don't like this color, I could just come here, right click, and I could say, you know, let's just change this to green, and then I can save it, and now it's green. Or I could say, you know, I don't really like where this is sitting, so why don't we just move it? So that's the drag and drop feature from the view box right there. And then I can save it.
Nice.
So on the moves, I don't do anything. I don't update on the moves. I only, after I've moved everything around, then I click the update button so that it all just goes at once. And now there's some other little things here, like if I really wanted to get some detail in it, I could change this kind of stuff, right? Like here and here. to get the coordinates, and I can do different things. So then I was thinking, well, what else could I do with this? Let me just update this again. So I thought, well, from an office point of view, what if you could put parking spaces? Let me run that again. I was just playing with this and changed something right at the last minute, which I shouldn't have done. So I thought, well, what if you could do parking spaces? Because sometimes you want to do that and you want to see, well, who's number 3, how much do they pay a month, that kind of thing. Or what if you did mailboxes, so you could do that kind of a thing. So every one of these, and these images are also just bitmap images in the database. And then I thought, well, what if you did an org chart? Or if you did a family tree? What are all the different possibilities here? And so like a seating chart, for example, right? So I can take this and I can move the seating chart guys around too. So I could drag and drop that. And then I thought, well, what if, for this demonstration, I thought, what if I wanted to, whoops, oh, not here, but here. I'd like to go to a coding shop where Selwyn was the teacher, right? So how easy is it to add somebody? And so if I come here and say Selwyn.jpg, and I know that these are display nice at this many pixels. And now I could just put Selwyn there. And you go, oh, that's a little too big. Let me just make that medium and save it. And then I could put him there as the teacher for the coding workshop, and then I can save it. So once you build this piece, it's real easy to add stuff to it. And that was kind of the idea.
So what's being saved in the background? For example, you moved Mr. Miyagi down to a student and Selwyn up. Is it just coordinates that are being saved, or is there other meaning? Like if you put someone in the teacher's chair, is he now marked as the teacher or something like that?
Well, you could do that if you wanted, but no, this is right now, all this is doing is saving the coordinates.
Neat, okay.
So if I right clicked on it, you can, and then looked at the coordinates, you can see what the coordinates are.
Neat. So you could do a little bit of math behind the scenes to figure out where it is compared to, say, some other image. You know, is it overlapping or is it?
Yep. It's all available. You could do all that kind of stuff. But like, let's look at this one. So the top says 81. So then if I say, well, let's move this guy over here now.
And
let's see. You'll notice now the top is 73.
Yep, got it.
So it saves it. And so
that is cool.
And so really it's just kind of your imagination at this point. What could you use something like this for, and how easy would it be, right? Like you want to, move these guys around. So some of the hard things are just finding the background images. So I just kind of went out and found these images and then, fooled around with them a little bit. Like this one used to have all these guys up here too, and I just removed them. I cloned them out with the blue background, and I could do the same here with them here, and we could put more images here. But this is kind of nice. And then of course you can print this, or you can put it as a, an image in your database, or whatever you want to do with it. I mean, it's really unlimited. But you'll notice here what it is. It's 3 tables. So you have your image table, which again is just that. And so if I say I'm going to add a new image, see, it's going to ask me the image name and the sequence number and all that. And so I don't want to do that, but let me, right now anyway. But the idea was to make this as flexible as possible. So whatever you have an image, you needed an image for. The family tree, org chart. And then, so this is what it looked like when I first put it in there. It's just a seating chart that I got off the internet. And then I'm going to now add these guys to it. And so then you just play around with it. And I've made it now, see, so you can change things, right? Like you can change the picture width and height, and it's in a div. And I'm going to show you that in a minute. But look, I can change the font. I can change the bold, I can change, all of this is there to change. So let's go behind the scenes and look at this. So the first thing you'll notice is here are my tables. So here's my image-based table. Here's my picture map. And then here's the details. And so there's just 3 tables and 3 tabs. And so it's pretty straightforward. And then here I have a window, and that window opens up that information for that image. So if we look at this, this is the view box. And you'll notice that what I've done here is the first thing is I have a span, and this span is the, I called that something good here, what image base. So this is the image base image right here. So that's what gets put in this span. And then in this div is called the canvas. And you'll notice I have this double click on that canvas. So if we were to go look at what am I doing in that double click, you'll see here that I'm saving the XY coordinates. And here I have a little bit of an offset. So I put that offset in. So then I save them, and then all I do is click the button that says button add. So that's what happens on that. That's the double click, and then there's a right click as well. And so then on drag and drop, I'm getting this information here, and this is all kind of self-documented when you go into the view box and check drag and drop. And then if I right click, this is what's happening. I think that says right click, doesn't it? Yeah, on right click, what happens? Well, I'm gonna click the button to edit that form. And then, you know, Windows has a little menu that pops up if you right click. So this just suppresses that menu. And then you come down here. So on drag start, you're just getting the coordinates. Where are you? And then here, as you move it around, it's updating the coordinates. And then as you drop it, you can see what you're going to do. So now I'm going to grab my coordinates at the end of the drop, and then I'm just going to update the table with those coordinates, and then I'm going to refresh the table. So pretty straightforward, pretty simple. And we'll look at this. So here's this is the database, or the picture base. So that's my big picture, the drawing picture. So now the question is how do you get these to load, right? Because it's pretty simple if you think about it. And it took me a minute to think about it. So really what I want to do is save those coordinates in the database. And then when I come back from the database, I want to restore those coordinates. So a lot of times when you see these drag and drop demos, these are great demos, right? But they never save it to the database. So the database part was like, I think I can do that in the database. Let's see if I have this JavaScript here. So I'm coming back from the database. So I have this little function called refresh the divs, right? And as I'm going through each item in the list, I'm building a div. So this is the secret to this. So you can see here, I'm going to loop through the list, and you see it happen so fast. I mean, you don't really even see it happening. It's kind of a magic trick in a way. And now I'm going to just build the div and put in the div what I want. So as you can see here, I'm putting the font color, font size, all that kind of stuff in the div. The photo, so that's the photo that I'm using. And then I'm saying now if there is a photo, then I'm going to do a couple of other things. In this case, right now I'm just grabbing this photo off a place called class pictures. So if we went out there, I don't know if I have this up or not. Let's see if I do. Nope. Well, we'll look at it real quick anyway. I think I just put it in live preview. Class pictures. So there's all the pictures that I'm using. And so I'm loading the picture, and then you can see I'm setting the background size and that kind of thing, and just the various things. And then the secret here on this div is, you can set your cursor, your position, but then you want to set the attributes. And so I'm setting this attribute to be drag 1. So that's how it knows that I'm referencing it back to that item, right? So you see drag 1 here. Now we look at it. Drag 1, this is what drag 1 does. So it's a real nice way, a real simple way to handle all that. And then here I'm just making sure I absolutely have the ID that I want. Let's see, so what I wanted to do is I want to show you what it looks like if I put a border on it, a red border. And I copied this one from Selwyn because this is what he did in his demonstration when he added this drag and drop functionality. So now if we go here, so the first thing it's going to do is going to open up the first base image in the database. And then it's going to run that little function in JavaScript, and it's going to loop through there, and it's going to build the divs. And so you can see that's what it did, and it knew where to place them because we saved the XY coordinates in the database. And so as you can see here now, I put a red border around each div, so now you can actually see the div. So let's go to the seating chart and see what that looks like. So now you can see how that looks in the seating chart. And I think this works. I mean, you could change the size of the div here if you needed to. If for some reason you were having a display problem, we'll make it kind of big. Let's see what that does. If we refresh it, maybe. Well, there might be a maximum I put on that, but anyway. So anyway, you can see the divs. And now, does that seem to make sense? And like, for example, even the name, the title is part of it, right? So if I came here to like the parking spaces, so that's even part of it right there. So if I come here and I right click, now I can change this to say anything I want, right? And then I could move it around. So you could really put whatever you want in there, the titles and everything. And that's what I did on this first one. We'll go back to that. So not only do I have a title, but I have then a subtitle, and you could do that as much as you want to in this thing. Change that back to fuchsia. So we can go back to it now. I could remark that out so that you don't see it. But does anyone have any questions on that? I mean, you can see it's pretty straightforward. All you're doing is opening up the list. You're not doing anything special on the list. You just say, open the list. There's nulls are not allowed. So it just grabs the first item in the list, which is that office image. Mm-hmm. And then it says, now loop through the database. And it's that second database that has the list of the divs, basically where they go, and then it loads those. That's how it loads those divs.
That is really cool. There's a lot of chatter here in the questions and answers or chat section. People are really impressed with this. If people have more questions specifically, can they get in touch with you?
Sure.
Okay. Do you want to share whatever contact information you'd like? People can always get in touch here at guides@alphasoftware.com. But if you want to give out your email.
Sure. It's lee@vasic.com.
That is fantastic. You got that one a while ago, I bet.
Yeah. When I didn't even know what it would mean.
Yeah. This has been really, really cool. Yeah. So I'm taking a look here through questions. Oh yeah, someone said, okay, the image mapper in particular, I bet you're going to get some questions on probably after this webinar, but the top one was, how long did it take you to build out this component?
Well, this is a hard to say because I mean, I've been building this component for years, right? Because I started off just with the concept, so everything was fixed at first, and it was hard coded, and so the first iteration it was all hard coded, and then I thought it would be kind of cool if I could move stuff around, you know. So then I worked with that, and then I was using jQuery a lot to do the drag and drop stuff, which is way more complicated than it is now.
Yeah.
But basically, I mean, you're just talking about, in this case, you're going to build 3 tables, and then, you know, and then you're going to use the view box. So when I first started this, there was no view box, right?
Right.
And if you think of what I mean, the view box is basically doing everything for you. Now, I've never used the view box before. So I said, I'm going to take my component, I'm going to delete all the jQuery script, all the custom code, and just use the view box. And it probably took me about 20 minutes to set up the view box because I found that the view box was self-documented. I found that the example was pretty good and I could understand it. And then when I looked for, I mean, they had this in the help. I thought, how do I show this picture? And I looked up the view box help in the documentation, and it showed how to do it, right? You're going to have this picture, and this is how you're going to show it and how it updates and everything. It always amazes me because I'm doing this and I'm going, how did they know I wanted to do this? Because all the documentation was there for this.
Oh, that's fantastic.
And even this, when you create a new view box, some of this documentation is there in this. I might have remarked it out. See, I've remarked it out, but if I remove this and then come back into it, then it will come back. So see, it shows you right there what you need and what you need to do and what it is, you know.
Fantastic.
So the only thing, they should probably add this piece to it, this on right click, because this Windows thing will pop up. So they should add that. They should add that to the
we'll take note of that.
To the education there. But anyway, and so yeah, so I don't even know now. And if you know view boxes, right, and you know how simple and straightforward it is, there's some guys now that only build view boxes. I'm not there yet. I still like the list control myself, but some people now are just building everything in a view box because they say they get more, you know, they get more, it's more agile, it's speedier, better performance. So, and I've seen stuff that looks amazing in a view box, but I just haven't had the time to do that. And I don't really know the nuances between the two and what the pros and cons would be. But I really like the list controls, right? So these are just 3 list controls here.
Oh yeah.
And then, so I got there's some little issue I've introduced here because it should just refresh when I change stuff. But anyway, and then like, you know, you can do these different things like that. So
excellent. Hey, Lee, thank you very much. This has been a tremendous presentation. I know a lot of people here appreciated it. I want to thank everyone who joined us today. Thank you, Sarah, for being in the background and putting in links into chat. If you do have further questions, of course, send them to guides@alphasoftware.com. Until then, we hope to see you at our next Wednesday webinar. Until then, take care and stay well. Bye-bye.